Today on Toy Habits, we are taking a look at the Nameless Faceless Legion of Cobra Command, the G.I. Joe Retro Collection Cobra Trooper, and making comparisons to his vintage figure from 1982 and the Cobra FANG pilot because Hasbro loves to reuse figure molds. And before we get into the review, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can be alerted to the latest reviews, news, and episodes when they drop. Hey everyone, welcome back to Toy Habits, and today we are taking a detailed look at the G.I. Joe Retro Collection Cobra Trooper, which is the first army builder in the series aside from the vehicle drivers, and we're making comparisons to his vintage figure from 1982 and the Cobra FANG pilot because they share so much in common, and with that, let's get right into the review. And let's get down to business like we usually do and take a look at Cobra Trooper's package. Wait, that didn't come out right. Let's take a look at the Cobra Trooper's packaging, and the Cobra Trooper comes in the G.I. Joe Retro Collection vintage card, which has the very, very long blister, which is actually fine because you can see all of his accessories here and they actually fill up the blister, so it's not that bad. And taking a look at the art that's beside him, it pretty much looks exactly like the vintage art from 1982, although you can see more of the gun barrel because they didn't have ginormous blisters in 1982. And taking a look at the back of the package, we're just going to be focusing on this upper half here because there is a lot of useless information that is taking up some prime real estate on this card back. So you can see the cross-sell art. If you can find these figures out in the wild, good luck. You can also see this file card that they have here, which is pretty useless because it's pretty much a one-line file card and everything else is translated into 4 other different languages. But that said, it's actually really still cool to see the art that they have on the file card, and this is exactly the same rendering as the one from 1982, maybe aside from some color differences. This one looks a little darker, but maybe the ones that I've seen have been faded. And now that the Cobra Trooper is out of the box, let's first take a look at his head sculpt. Now, his hair is actually sculpted really, really nicely here. You can see some nice waves in his hair, and you can even see this lovely part that he has on his hair, which is probably most likely covered up with a helmet, but it's a pretty good looking dude. One of my favorite parts of this head sculpt is the way that the mask lays on his face and covers his nose. You can see the folds in the mask here, and it actually looks like it's a piece of fabric. So it's also very cool that they've also put the black fabric along his neck as well. And moving to the facial features, his eyes are illustrated very well, and his eyebrows are as well, and his ear detail is fantastic. And moving down to the Cobra Trooper's torso, we can see a very detailed chest piece, and I love the strap detail that is going over his shoulders. It has a very nice layered look to it, and if you turn it around to the back, you can also see a lot of the detail and how it comes together in the back. It actually looks like it clips in the middle there, and you can also see some pouch detail at the bottom, and if you flip him around, he's got a very nice sculpted on handgun here, but I actually wish that they had turned this around so the handle of the gun is pointing the other direction because it's hiding this Cobra symbol that you can see barely through the straps here. You can also see that he has a spot for his knife, which is very cool. You can just stick that in his chest right there. And you can also see a lot of the pouch detail. If you turn this figure all the way around, you can get a good look at all of the things that are packed on this chest piece here. Now I've taken down the straps a little bit so you can just see the Cobra symbol and also the texturing here on the shirt. And I love the line that's going up the middle, and it actually does look like a piece of clothing, and the collar detail is pretty cool too. And you can also see some of the clothing detail on his shoulders as well. And moving down to the Cobra Trooper's arms, his arms are symmetrical, meaning that they are both exactly the same on each side, which is really weird because he has a timepiece on his hand. So he also has a timepiece on his other hand too. Maybe the guy doesn't want to be late, who knows? But I think they did a really good job with just all of the texturing detail that they have on the upper arm and this little pouch, and also the forearm detail is pretty cool. It looks like he has a little forearm guard kind of keeping his timepiece safe and sound. And you can also see that it looks exactly the same on the other side. And on to one of my favorite parts of the review, the gratuitous crotch shot. But I really wanted to point out the detail on the belt here. You can see some of the texturing that they've added here, which if you can kind of catch the light right, you can see that. And he also has this really cool either comms device or explosives pack on his leg there, but I'm really not sure which one it is. He also has a very cool sculpted gun, which can actually hold a handgun, which is great because I am not a fan of orphan accessories that do not serve a purpose. And you can also see some of the writing that they have on here, which is a very interesting place to put this stuff. I thought they would have put this on the bottom of his foot, but it kind of looks really weird, and it's very distracting for me at the moment. And finally, moving down to the knee armor and the boots, he's actually been given some really cool knee armor. I love this angular design, and it does have some riveting on it as well. And I love that the pants actually look like pants, so it kind of looks like they're feeding into the boots here. The boot design is actually really, really nice. You can see some of the laces here and some of the straps that they put over the shoe, and also some of the treads. So very cool boots and very cool knee armor. And like I alluded to before, the Cobra Trooper comes with a lot of accessories that will fill up that blister. So let's first take a look at his helmet. And it is a standard issue helmet that he has here. And you can just see that it is made to fit over his head, which is really, really nice touch. And the next couple accessories are really, really tiny, so I'll try not to drop them as I get them. But here he has a standard 9mm pistol, and you can just see some of the texturing here on the handle. You can also see some of the detail on the barrel of the gun. It's really, really tiny and meant to fit in the holster that he has strapped to his left leg. And next up, we have a standard issue drop point knife with a very nice serrated edge detail that they have here. And again, this knife is really, really tiny, so hopefully you can see the detail, but you can also see some of the texturing on the handle of the knife here. And next up, we have his Dragunov rifle, which is a semi-automatic sniper rifle that was designed in the Soviet Union. And you can see that it's got a really detailed scope. The barrel looks really, really nice. And also the gun stock looks really, really cool too. And it kind of harkens back to the original weapon that the original Cobra Trooper came with in 1982. And finally, we have the very large green bazooka here, and you might be asking yourself, why is this Cobra Trooper packed with a green bazooka? Well, it's pretty awesome because the JCPenney version exclusive back in 1982 came packed with either the thin-handled version of Zap's bazooka or a dark green version. And now you know. Wait for it, and knowing is half the battle. And that said, this looks like a Carl Gustaf recoilless M4 84mm bazooka with a laser rangefinder, and it actually looks very, very cool. They've actually had some really, really nice detail here. You can see some of the texturing on the handle, and the scope look actually pretty cool because it just kind of looks like a separate piece. I thought this came down just because of the way it was put on, but no, it's a fixed piece on there, and you can see some riveting, and the tube detail looks really, really nice. And here is the Cobra Trooper all geared up, and one of my favorite parts to this bazooka is the little cutout that he has for his arm or his shoulder. So I think the attention to detail on that was really, really nice, and he's got a spot for his knife and a spot for his handgun, and he is holding his sniper rifle, and in real life he wouldn't be this geared up, but I think it's cool just to throw all the accessories on him just to see what he looks like. Now, comparing the Cobra Trooper to the Cobra FANG pilot, you can see that it is overall the same sculpt that they're using for both figures, and it's very common for Hasbro to reuse parts and pieces and these molds, so let's take a look closer at these similarities and differences. And really the main differences lie in the head sculpts and also the chest pieces that they have on. So let's remove these helmets here and we can just get a closer look at the head sculpts for each of them. And I think they are using the same head sculpt, although the Cobra FANG pilot has a molded face mask on here, whereas the Cobra Trooper just has his standard cloth face mask that's going over his nose and his mouth. Some of the other differences are the placement of the Cobra symbol. So it is dead center in the chest of the Cobra Trooper. And if you peel back the layers here, the Cobra FANG pilot has a small little Cobra symbol that is hidden by the straps in his chest piece. And really quickly, while we are above the waist, you can also see that the arm sculpts are the same, but there's just some variation where the Cobra FANG pilot has been given black gloves and a black forearm, and the Cobra Trooper has been given his standard issue blue uniform. And moving down to the legs, we can see that the Cobra FANG pilot has some blue paint app here that is different than the kind of standard issue blue paint app that we see on the right leg here. And also the holsters are colored a little bit differently. The FANG pilot has more of a blue holster, and the Cobra Trooper has a black holster. And other than that, the knee armor is essentially the same and the boots are essentially the same. And we have some very cool reuse of a particular mold, and it can give us a very different looking figure when paint app and just different sculpting details are applied to these figures. And comparing the Cobra Trooper to the vintage Cobra Trooper from 1982, you can obviously see the height difference here, and these newer G.I. Joe collection retro figures are a little bit taller than the standard 3 3/4 inch figures. I think these guys are about 4 inches tall, but you can see a lot of the similarities and differences here that they've carried over from the vintage line. For example, the helmet and the mask. You can also see the Cobra symbols that are dead center in each of their chests. The vintage figure from 1982 has a gun that is sculpted in the strap here, and you can also see that is represented here. One difference is that the figure from 1982 had a sculpted on knife that is on the side of his leg here, and they chose to put that knife in the strap and holster up on his chest here. So I think it's a nice touch. It adds a little bit of bulkiness to the figure, which is kind of needed. And one cool thing that I actually wish that they would have carried over from the vintage figure are these details that they have sculpted on the arms here. I think that would have been a very nice homage to the 82 figure if they had carried those over, but they didn't. And I think it was probably because they wanted to reuse these parts for a lot of other figures. And one last thing that I want to point out is that the Dragunov sniper rifles look very similar to each other, although the G.I. Joe Retro Collection sniper rifle is obviously a lot bigger and it just has more sculpting detail to it, but they've really retained that overall design of that vintage sniper rifle. This G.I. Joe Retro Collection Cobra Trooper is a nice blend of new features and aspects that pay homage to the vintage figure from 1982. The sculpted parts and removable weapons add a very nice touch. Let us know your thoughts on this figure in the comments below, and thanks for tuning into Toy Habits.